all know that this nuclear talks between Iran and other world powers, the 6 of them, began in Geneva on this October 15th and 16th. And it is a very significant move forward as far as the Iranian nuclear issue is concerned, because this issue has created whole lot of concerns in the Middle East region, and also US is very much engaged in that process. So to tell more about this issue, I would request Dr. Balachandran to share his views, and which will be followed by discussions.
For 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
As Sanjeev said, the talks began on 15 and ended, why is that? Well, I don't know. 16, okay? And surprisingly, unlike the earlier talks, this one was very well received, and both the parties parted on very amicable terms, and also decided to meet next in November 7th, probably in another couple of weeks. Now, this is very significant for 2 reasons, both for international peace and for India in particular. For simple reason that this is a thing which has been going for so long and with apparently no solution in sight. But after the election of the new Iranian president, things seem to have moved much faster. There seems to be a greater political willingness on this side of both the parties to come to an agreement. And unlike earlier times, this is not an adversarial meeting that took place. Both of them knew the conditions under which they were meeting, and both were really keen to come to a solution. So as I said, they had met a number of times without even coming to a joint statement. This was a very positive joint statement. But the interesting thing to note is why one is optimistic. I'll just say briefly. Unlike other earlier times, this time, even before they meet on November 7th, both the sides have decided a team of experts, of nuclear scientists and sanction experts, will meet before the meeting in order to figure out a way to get out of the mess. As you know, even in the Syrian case, it was not while both the US and Russia had agreed something must be done. It was only after the technical experts of Russia and United States met and came to an agreement on how to go about doing that, that finally a decision came out. The fact that both the sides are agreed that their scientific and sanctions experts will meet before the meeting is a very good pointer. Seems that the meeting seems to have gone positively in the October meeting. Now there is a greater political willingness. Without that, of course, neither side would have met. But there are compulsion on both the sides. For the Iranians, it was the economy. Look, in the Iranian fiscal year 2011 and 12, the exports of oil was $120 billion. In the 2012-13, we just finished on March, it was merely $68 billion. Given the factor that the Iranian economy is heavily dependent on oil income, especially its public finance, this would have made a substantial difference to all the public finance calculations in Iran. And if the sanctions had continued, with all the Iranian oil importing countries committed to further reduction of oil imports from Iran, this would have seen a further decline in the coming years, 2013-14. So that was one of the factors. The second factor is because of these various factors, the inflation has been running very heavily. And incidentally, these are all figures from the Central Bank of Iran. In July, August, that is the July 21st to August 20th, July, August, the inflation was 43.1% over the corresponding period of last year. And thirdly, heavy battering of the exchange rate. Already the market exchange rate was about 3 times the reference rate before July 1st. On July 1st, the reference rate was almost doubled from 12,260 riyals for a dollar to 24,790. As a consequence of two factors, the Rouhani's election and the positive atmosphere, the black market rate, in fact, dropped from early September to late September from over 36,000 to 30,000 riyals, which is not very much. So, the Iranian economy being under pressure and with no apparent end in sight, the Iranian government did a positive movement to say how to resolve, how to cut the Guardian knot, and they approached in a very positive spirit. And the Americans too and the P5 had really good reasons to enter into goodwill negotiations for the simple reason, for the Americans this is a problem which is not going away. Two, with the situation developing in West Asia and Afghanistan, it makes sense for the West to come to some terms with Iran, which is a very good neighbor of Afghanistan and also is a very important player in West Asian power relations. So both these sides are approached. Now, the problem is very easily solvable in the sense the end solution is very easy to conceive. Iran says it doesn't want a bomb. The West and the others, they don't want it to have bombs, so they are in agreement. So how to come to some relation? And unfortunately, it is not enough to say I don't want a bomb for the others to get confidence. It is necessary to have some sort of verifiable means of seeing that they are not doing that. That is going to be the crux of the problem. And the only agency, the only entity that is capable of resolving this issue at that level is the IAEA, just like OPCW was the only unit, entity that could have taken care of the chemical weapons in Syria. So IAEA would have to be involved, which means the additional protocol would have to come in, since IAEA has clearly said that it cannot do its job about verifying all nuclear activities in Iran or any other country for that matter, unless there is an additional protocol in force. Iran has no problem with additional protocol per se. They had signed it but not ratified it. And according to some reports, in the earlier this year, last year in the Moscow talk, they were supposed to have offered to sign additional protocol and enforce it as well. So, the contours of the agreement are very clear. That Iran would have to sign additional protocol, they have no problems with that. Iran does not want nuclear bomb, others are quite happy with that, to see that it is in fact the case. Iran's bottom line is that its rights under NPT should not be compromised, which means the enrichment activities cannot be brought to Iran. There is a universal agreement that Iran has a very strong case for having an enrichment technology and enrichment facilities operating in Iran. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing bar against that, either under NPT or any other international agreement. Therefore, that too is something one has to agree, and I think now the West is agreeable to that. Question comes around is now the nitty-gritty. Which comes first, the egg or the chicken? Now, to some extent you see coming from, not from the official side in either country. In Iran, the legislators and Senate and others saying that this must be done, sanctions must be removed before anything can be done, etc. etc. This is going to be really a very complex problem, which is the reason why I am hopeful that the meeting of the nuclear experts and the sanctions experts can come to an agreement, because both the sides would not have agreed to a meeting of these two groups of people unless the presentation that was made by Iran during the October talk gave hope to both these sides that some via media can be found for resolving this. To give you an idea, the sanctions are the major thing, as I said. Without a sanction regime, There is no incentive for Iran to engage in any talk with anybody. Now the sanctions are of three different types. These are the international UN mandated sanctions which every country has to do. They are the multilateral sanctions which are done by European Union, which is enforceable in European Union. And there are the unilateral sanctions. I think the United States is the major one. Canadians and the UK have done some marginal ones. How to resolve and how to remove all these things. These sanctions are both direct and indirect. Direct in the sense they say directly what Iran can and cannot do, what can and cannot be done with Iran. And indirect in the sense that it influences very strongly, if not dictates, the behavior of third countries towards Iran. For example, the reduction in oil imports from Iran is not mandated by any country. On the other hand, sanctions from the United States say if a country does not reduce its transactions with the United States will be impacted. It's not a tax you have to reduce. If you don't do that, you will pay penalty. Which is the reason India, notwithstanding its oft-repeated claim, saying that we will do what is in our interest, etc., 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 has been steadily reducing Iranian imports, as have been the others, South Korea, Japan, and the only country that has not reduced it is Turkey, but that's for various reasons. Unless one knows the limits of and the broad contours of the sanctions and how they can be resolved, it's very difficult to come to any agreement. One or two things are clear. While it is true that Iran is entitled to enrichment plants and facilities, one can question what is the rationale for building a huge enrichment facility going beyond the enrichment of 20. Beyond 20, there is very little use for highly enriched uranium except for limited in case of research reactors and for making isotopes. Our reactors you hardly use 20%. There is no other use except for weapons. Thirdly, one could say that I want to have an enrichment facility and technology in order to be able to commercially market enriched uranium as have been Urenco, Russia and others. Unfortunately, the Iranian uranium deposits are so low that it cannot sustain for more than a couple of years enrichment at this rate. Nor does it have any natural uranium in order to be able to enrich uranium to even to 2% to fuel its power plants. Power plants require about a couple of tons of 2 or 3% enriched uranium. Iran does not have uranium reserves which will take it for more than a couple of years. Therefore, there could be a rational ground for asking why do you need so much enrichment facility when what is the use? But that's a different matter. Now, the international sanctions are the easiest ones. They relate basically to arms embargo and high technology items related to nuclear matters. Now, both these things are, whether the UN does it or not, except for Russia and China perhaps, most of the other arms producing countries already have domestic legislation against arms transfers to Iran. So this affects only Russia and to a some extent China. The one that has some implication is the naming of entities and persons who are, which as the language says, acting on behalf of or the direction of the designated parties and entities or entities controlled by them. If somebody is named in the UN, I think the 1370 committee, I forgot the number of that, then countries are obliged to freeze their assets. A number of Iranian banks and entities and individuals have been named under the UN list. So that is the first thing, freezing of UN assets, Iranian assets in other countries as a result of UN sanction, which is mandated on all countries. Other than that, there are no international sanctions which are of consequence to Iran. When you come to the multilateral and individual, they are far more serious. The most extensive is very difficult to say which is the one, whether it's the United States or the European Union. This says the general sanctions, embargo on all dual-use items, on all exports of technology that's not relevant anyway, like nuclear, ban on trade in coal, restriction on transfers of funds to and from Iran. More important, the petroleum related. Since oil and petroleum products, gas is most important to Iranian economy. Import of ban on crude oil and petroleum products from Iran by all European Union member states. Ban on petrochemical products. Ban on provision of services. Embargo on equipment and technology for the oil sector. Import ban on natural gas. Ban on provision of services to the petroleum sector. Essentially hitting the most crucial element of the Iranian economy, that is the oil, petrochemical and gas sectors in all of its aspects, investment, technology. The finance related is ban on investment in Iran, certain areas, transfers of funds to and from Iran, restrictions on the Iranian banks, monitoring of branches of EU branches and subsidiaries domiciled in Iran, transactions of European Union financial institutions, restrictions on the provision of insurance and reinsurance, which is the reason Iranian oil tankers will not be covered by major international insurance brokers. In addition, freezing of funds and economic resources to two persons, not only in the UN committee, but which are also listed nationally, which are quite substantial and much more than those listed on the UN register. Ban on provision of specialized financing messaging services, that is, removal of Iranian bank from the SWIFT network, which effectively cuts off all Iranian banks to the international financial transactions and communication services. The US's language is simpler, but it's far more eloquent. Sanctions on all goods and technology, no good and technology may be exported, re-exported, sold, supplied, etc., etc., etc. to Iran. Indirectly means an Indian broker cannot import something from the United States and export to Iran under the penalty of sanction by US on that entity. Goods and services of Iran may not be imported. Foreign persons who are not US persons are also prohibited if what they do would be subject to US laws. US persons cannot finance or do anything like that. No investments, no U-turn, which is the reason now Indian banks, Indian government is having problem paying Iran. Because, as you say, depository authorized to process such transfers of funds. If they do that, they cannot operate in the United States. Same thing, US person may not trade in, as I said. These are the question is this, the meeting that will take place, but the nuclear experts, those who are very well knowledgeable about how to safeguards methods, how it is done, etc., etc., and the sanction experts from both the countries to meet, how they can balance one against the other in a time frame, because this cannot go indefinitely. There are certain obvious things which I mean, all sanctions cannot be removed immediately. It is impossible. For simple reason, remove, then why should I talk to you? It has to be a graded one. How do you grade them? What one may consider to be important, essential, the other may say it is too important to be removed. All these are finer points that will have to be discussed. One thing to be said is here, both the governments and their technical teams are working on this in a far more serious and focused manner, then most of the people, not most, in fact almost all the people except few exceptions, myself included, who look at it in a very technical manner. Politically, yes, but the technical is the one that will determine. All depends on the meeting of the experts that will take place between now and November. If they make some headway, we will see a progress. If they feel, no, we cannot reconcile between the two teams about what West expects Iran to do and what they would do in return, and what Iran expects in return for doing something, if they do not match, then the talks will not go anywhere. What can India do? Because this seems to be always the case. Where does India stand? The Iranian resolution of the Iranian is both good and bad for India. Good because we can import oil. Bad because we import oil from Iran and pay in rupees. We are not paying in dollars. But if the matter is resolved, we will have to start paying in dollars and the foreign exchange outflow will be higher. The other way positively India can do is this. IAEA will be the nodal agency which will determine the progress of the whole discussion beyond agreement. IAEA, while it is supposedly a neutral agency, there are sections of IAEA which are not entirely impartial in their evaluation of the program. So IAEA Board of Governors may decide that there should be an overseeing body for the work of the IAEA Safeguards Department to see that they are working objectively and in a manner conducive to bring the matter to an end. India, being a permanent member of IAEA Board of Governors ever since its inception, can play a major role in it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.